Hello, everyone. Welcome to this presentation. My name is Megan Gilson, and I am a brand new adjunct instructor here at the University of Arizona Global Campus. I will be the host of this session, the university's dual role as gatekeeper and guide in response to AI. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC-related materials. Your microphones will be muted for this presentation, but we encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we have enabled live transcription. If you would like to use it, click the live transcription button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now, I'm pleased to introduce you all to Cole McFarren, who is the Associate Director of Academic Technology and Innovation here at UAGC.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Megan. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today and for attending this session. The university's dual role as gatekeeper and guide in response to AI. Like Megan said, my name is Cole McFarren, and I am our Associate Director of Academic Technology and Innovation with the University of Arizona Global Campus. I wish I would have prepared to say how many of the TLCs I've presented at, because it's been a lot. I don't think I've gotten all of them, but man, I'm close. I want to see how many presenters today have done all of them, because I bet we have a few. So I'm excited. It's been a great day so far. Seen some really good presentations, and I know there's a lot of good ones on the agenda I'm looking forward to. So honored to be a part of the lineup today. So I've been with the university now and under its former moniker for about 12 years or so. I've spent a lot of time working in writing instruction, kind of starting out. I worked in academic integrity for a while. I worked in academic technology and continue to, and I also worked in faculty support and development roles over the years. But a big part of my job now is kind of working to ensure that our classroom is moving forward and that we're exploring new possibilities for students and for the faculty classroom experience, which also means that I am one of the lucky people who gets asked the question, hey, what are we doing about AI? What is, what's higher education doing, in general to harness AI to benefit students, and how are they navigating this new space? We get AI just made a new Beatles song. What's higher ed doing with AI? Come on, get with the program, guys. What's happening? So it's really just a fascinating landscape to be a part of, higher education and artificial intelligence, where the two collide. And so while I definitely do not, I'll throw out the caveat here as I start out today that I am not an expert on artificial intelligence. But what I do feel like I have a really nice grasp on over the last couple of years is I've really gotten the chance to attend a lot of conferences and see many presentations and read about what artificial intelligence is doing across higher education and how higher education institutions and companies are responding to the advancements in this type of technology. So when we talk about AI, there's been a lot of analogies and comparisons. Over the last couple of years, it's been compared to when calculators were introduced to the classroom. I've heard the recent comparison about how it could eventually become as impactful as electricity, and that intimately, involved with our lives. But for the sake of today's conversation, I want to use one of my favorite, most recent takes, the Wild West. So Salesforce and Matthew McConaughey ask us, if AI is the Wild West, who is the sheriff? And I know you can hear it in Matthew McConaughey's voice right now. It's kind of like Morgan Freeman. You don't even have to do the impression, you can hear it. And it's really true. It's a fun comparison. The AI is really still in this Wild West period. Only within the last few weeks did the White House put out a statement to begin the daunting task of regulating and trying to oversee within the government. And the point that we're here today is that universities are in just this fantastically unique situation. In some ways, we are being, if we're going with this analogy, deputized. To kind of create and enforce the law or policies as we see fit. But one of the wildest parts of the Wild West right now is also a lot of the uncertainty that exists with the validity of the information that AI gives us, where the information we put goes in, how that's being used, and what bias exists within it. So here, there is no perfect analogy for this type of situation that we're in, because after we have our students in this Wild West of AI, they're thrown into this whole other working world where, sometimes the rules or policies that we created are different or don't exist at all. So we are really in this very, very unique position to We can talk about how we can like over police it. We can either pretend like it doesn't exist or really make an effort to ensure that our students are exposed to AI and educated about it to make their own informed decisions. Not an easy task. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how we're seeing some universities respond to AI. We'll talk specifically about how UAGC is responding to advancements in AI. And we'll also throw in a couple, a mashup of some recent resources, some thoughts, and some chances for us to brainstorm how we navigate this wild west. So some of you have already, introduced yourself a little bit in the chat, but please take just a moment to share your role, maybe what institution you're with, and then maybe what excites you most about AI and the potential impacts of higher education. And I do say, potential because we're still in early days in many aspects of AI and its impacts on higher education. So what are the things that you're most excited about its potential? What are some things that maybe you've heard about today, at TLC, or some sessions that you're looking forward to hearing more about? Go ahead and throw a few ideas in the chat, or what are some of the exciting things that we're hoping to see with AI's impacts on higher education? Nicole posted, interested in AI as assistive technology. I mean, we've kind of been promised that AI will eventually become like every teacher's aide. Kind of on this side, that's what we've been told it can do, right? We're still not there yet, but there's steps being made forward for certain to see that. Academic tutoring, Millie, absolutely. That is a big area where we're seeing lots of advancements. We'll talk a little bit about that. Absolutely, potential for brainstorming, revising, ideation, feedback, absolutely. Personalized tutoring, empathic AI, yes, absolutely. Putting a couple more layers of code on top to make it more empathic and really try to understand the human experience. It's fascinating, the work that's being done. Oh, and career services, that's a fascinating field to think about AI and job seekers. And especially I think that has to be a huge area where bias is being looked at and kind of sought out. Some great examples in the chat. Thank you. That's fantastic. I appreciate everybody for kind of getting their creative juices flowing and thinking about some of these possibilities. So what I want to kind of go through now is I took a chance to, over the last couple of months, I've had a chance to review quite a bit of information, but also I've been a part of some really interesting conversations within the university, and then also with external universities as well, talking with peers and seeing what their institutions are doing in response. So when we're talking about all of the things that a university has to consider in regards to AI, these are kind of the big buckets or big like focus areas, I guess, that I have, kind of identified, and I'm going to kind of talk through a little bit. So we'll kind of start at 12 o'clock. We'll talk about faculty training and resources. Faculty training and resources in response to AI is a whole beast in and of itself. We had a few opportunities, earlier on in this year to bring in external speakers to really talk to our faculty to really broach the subject and start talking about it, start the conversation. And now we're really to the point where our faculty want more, and a lot of what they want more of is like, all right, we've seen the theoretical, but how do we talk to students about it? How do we, when a student comes to me with a question, I still don't feel as knowledgeable as I could be. Or if a student has, a potential academic integrity concern with using artificial intelligence, those conversations are not easy to navigate. And those are the kinds of training that our faculty are asking for. We've been on a really interesting journey, and in talking to other institutions, we're definitely not alone in the story of AI detection and what it looks like for students and faculty. So obviously, we as educators, we want to focus on the positives, like what can AI do to help our students and to personalize the student experience instead of, okay, how can students use AI to cheat? But unfortunately, we do see, instances where students either don't understand how to properly and ethically use AI in their work, or they are trying to pull a fast one, or they run out of time, or they're in some kind of a dire situation. And they put it into ChatGPT. So we were in a situation, and higher ed in general was kind of screaming, at Turnitin and these other platforms, saying, "All right, well, what do we do? How do fix this? Come on, let's get some detection going." So Turnitin did, respond pretty quickly and turn on AI detection. And it's been imperfect, and which understandably so. I mean, it turned around very, very quickly, and the uh, the technology that it's trying to catch is also imperfect. So the interesting thing about any solution that is out there on the market right now, saying, okay, we can look at your students' content and say what came from AI. None of them are really able to say with much certainty that yes, it came from somewhere, and here's where it came from. It's kind of this black box of information that we've run into that is really tricky. We've heard about other institutions kind of flipping that part, the AI detection, off and Turnitin. We're definitely looking at that as a possibility and seeing if that's the most appropriate response, or if the more appropriate response is to keep it on, but know that it's a much different conversation than just a regular old academic integrity you copy and paste it from a website type of conversation. So faculty training and resources is its own kind of area in the Wild West. Policy. So like a lot of universities do, UAGC currently has a committee that I'm honored to be a part of, that is currently looking at what our policies are within the institution in regards to AI. So some institutions, they have kind of their standard academic integrity policy. You can't use information from somewhere else without citing it, and they don't have to tweak it because it still kind of fits with AI. But a lot of institutions we're seeing more and more are creating very, very specific policies around students' use of AI, how to do that, and what that looks like. So our committee is also looking at, do any amendments need to be made to our current academic integrity policies? And then we also have to look at, is it appropriate for what are appropriate uses for staff and faculty internally? What are our policies on AI created images in curriculum design, for example? I mean, I feel like our response should be, no, we don't want an AI created image. We want artists, and we want to be able to credit them and all those other things, but we need to come out and make a stance and have a kind of a policy on that. So there's all these new things that keep popping up about, it's not just as simple as like, okay, we make an addendum to, the academic integrity policy to include AI. That's just the tip of the iceberg with policy changes. So we also want to look at, kind of internal efficiencies that are possible with AI. You look at something as simple as, for example, Zoom. Zoom has come out, in the last few months with some AI technology where you can turn it on and you can have it take notes for you and create suggested action items and all these other things that are creating some real efficiencies in the regular business world and in all other worlds. And the interesting thing is that sometimes these are being used in higher education, certainly, but higher ed in general is taking a more conservative approach to some of these technologies. And I think rightfully so. I feel like we have a little bit more of a responsibility to know, okay, I'm in a meeting talking about student data or something like that. We need to know where that information is going. So we have also, spun back a couple of updates like that, but I know that higher ed institutions in general are reluctant to use some of these inefficiencies until they're a little more tried and true, and we know a little bit more about what's going into the sausage, essentially. So the other piece that we saw, and I hope that others here today got a chance to attend the session, the AI workshop, where they worked through some of the curriculum possibilities and curriculum crafting, kind of prompt engineering possibilities that are available as an internal efficiencies. There's some really cool things that you can do. I mean, I watched somebody design a class on teenage vampire romance within like 20 minutes, like just using prompts. It was fascinating. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg with some of the internal efficiencies and how AI can help with curriculum design, things like that. Millie and some others mentioned tutoring and chatbots earlier. There's a whole lot going on in that realm. So right now, for example, we encourage our students to utilize Grammarly, which is a form of AI. I mean, it's kind of an ongoing learning system where it, gives suggestions on students' grammar, and we encourage our students to use that. One of the unfortunate things that we've seen is kind of a lot of false positives showing up within AI detection with Turnitin, for example. So if a student uses Grammarly, for example, to provide feedback on their own paper and make edits, sometimes those are being flagged as coming up as being AI generated, and that's not the aim that we're going for. So Grammarly has that, but they also have a more advanced one called Grammarly Go that they're kind of trying to incorporate into their main product, but we're kind of holding off on for now, again, until we really make sure that all of these are vetted. But and I have to give, just a really big kudos out to Kira and to Millie and our library and advising, our library and writing center team, because they've done a fantastic job of keeping up with the technology with some of these, vendors and platforms and things, and have seen them advance and are just waiting for them to be ready enough to get in front of our students. And they're not quite there yet, but Grammarly is one of the big players and ones that we use. Conmigo has made some really, really big advancements in kind of layering, on top of ChatGPT to where a student can't just go in and ask for it to write its paper. There are guardrails that are kind of built in that guide the student on the journey. So lots of work going on in that realm. And I think within the next 6 months, we can really start to see some more of those, even potentially within our world. And another, area that the chatbots are being used quite a bit for that I've seen is like with IT or with things where there is, a huge database that exists, like for student IT support, for example, to where a bot can be set up to learn about that database and then help troubleshoot or provide 24/7 for student support, which is really cool. Nudging platforms are kind of their own, area of AI focuses for universities. There are some, we use Signals. Signals does have some AI that it utilizes to help predict the student, success likelihood, things like that. There are definitely other platforms that are on the market. We're currently piloting with a company called Discourse Analytics that utilizes AI to help create nudges based on student personality profiles. So we're really excited to start reporting out on the impact of that now that we're up and running. And there's a lot more other options out there on the market. A lot of them are less, that I'm seeing at least, are less classroom based and more CRM based, more, kind of Salesforce or student information system based. But definitely a lot of nudging with AI out on the landscape right now. And then lastly, talking about student resources and how we integrate AI into curriculum. Right off the bat, our writing center was awesome and super responsive in creating some resources for our students to get out in front of these conversations. But, like I was saying earlier, even with, if we have a policy that's in place, how do we communicate it out? Do we use just you can't just send one email and the policy is out there and known. And there's all of these other interesting conversations about how do you create an assignment that A, is AI proof, which is getting more and more hard to do. But B, that is something other than a student writing a 3-page paper to show mastery. We're really trying to find some new ways that students can get creative about that and to show their mastery. So, but how do we also, integrate it into assignments, have students go in and play with AI as a part of their assignment and get more familiar with it, but do it in a way that works to where you don't have to update it every day. The platforms change very, very quickly and the technology advances so quickly. It's hard to do that and not have to update it constantly. So there's definitely some hurdles in you can't just integrate it in a curriculum and create assignments about it. It's more difficult than that. So I want to walk everybody just kind of through just kind of this like ethical, I guess, scenario that I've been like kind of working through in my head. And if you have, thoughts or feelings or responses, feel free to kind of post them in the chat. But this is just kind of to highlight like how many variables we're kind of thinking about in higher education when we're talking about AI and who is using it and how. So, thinking about, okay, like you can take this chart and you can fill it in with, whatever, you can fill it in with smiley faces to frowny faces or something like that, but like whatever your reaction is. So say, for example, we have a student, they're working to write their final paper in their course and they use ChatGPT to help generate some topics. That seems pretty straightforward. What if they use AI for feedback throughout writing and then on their finished product? That seems pretty straightforward. So when a student starts to use AI to create the majority of their content and then makes very few edits or tweaks a couple things, that doesn't feel right, does it? It just doesn't feel right. So we talk about a faculty member writing the prompt for that final paper that the student is writing. Maybe they use AI to generate some topics in business ethics. Why not? That seems fine. What if they use AI for feedback on that prompt once they have it written? That seems fine. What if they use AI to create their entire curriculum for their course with some suave prompt engineering? If it's a good course, it's really, really hard to answer some of these questions. And it's never black and white like this either. It's always some some variance of gray in between all of these boxes. So in addition to, kind of thinking about like, okay, how do we address this when students do this? How do we talk about it when faculty do it? How do faculty model what we want our students to do? And then we talk about, okay, well, now that student has graduated, or maybe even while they're working on their degree, they're at their job. They're working on a presentation for some clients. They use AI to generate topics. Seems harmless. They use it for feedback on their finished product. Okay, that seems probably like a good idea, actually. And then they use it, or if they use AI to create most of it, I mean, if it closes the sale, is their boss going to care? Probably not. It's just such an interesting world. But then there's like 50 other questions that we have to ask. It's never cut and dry. It's so what type of AI is being used? Like, is the student using Grammarly, or are they using ChatGPT or something that's not intended necessarily for written assignment feedback? When should AI be cited in any of these situations? So, if a faculty member works with ChatGPT to craft maybe half of their curriculum, should they have to disclose that to a student? I don't know. These are all just kind of we're really kind of exploring a new ethical framework in some ways of, how do we approach all of these, and how do these make us feel, which is really interesting. So either way, thank you for, kind of humoring me, and hopefully that kind of got a couple things exercising, and not to go like totally negative, but kind of flip side of the question earlier, what are some of the things that you're maybe more concerned or uncertain about with AI and the potential impacts on higher ed? Loss of critical thinking skills. We did a pulse check survey with our faculty after one of our AI webinars earlier this spring, and we got about 40 responses. It was kind of an informal survey check, but I mean, that loss of critical thinking skills, I think that was the number one, faculty concern. Was that students could essentially get through it without thinking critically, which is terribly sad. Can we keep up the pace with it? Obviously, bias is huge. That is a huge concern, and something that frankly, I am okay with higher ed pumping the brakes and really being cautious with when and how we're integrating some of this technology. Absolutely. So I want to share just like a couple of resources that really give a little bit more of a lay of the land. As an institution, we're always afraid, and others are as well. Like, are we behind? Are there other institutions that are out there, that are doing all of these AI things that we're just behind on it? And the short answer is no. So there was a 2023 survey of campus chief technology and information officers that the Inside Higher Ed ran. I think they came out with the results about a month ago. It's very recent. And I will go ahead and post a few of these resources in the chat just so you have them as well. Yeah, very few CIOs are reporting that their institution has made any meaningful investments in these technologies. We're talking about like 1/3 indicating they're considering experimenting with AI or machine learning or adaptive learning. And then only about 16% are saying that it's a high priority or essential. And then we do have, kind of on the, in some of the other areas, about 4 in 10 are indicating that their institution has started using AI technology for instructional purposes. I mean, around 40% are saying they're starting to use for instructional purposes. Some simple admin tasks, like we were saying, meeting taking notes, some things like that. And then as research assistants, there's really more than 1/3 are indicating that they don't have any generative AI technology for research assistants, which is interesting. And then there was another. This was also something that came out, just a couple weeks ago. Like I had mentioned, I don't have the answers to many of these questions, but there was a group that is put together the education technology industry. They put together some principles for the future of AI education, and it's also I guess it's a part of the Software and Information Industry Association. But they've come together. I mean, there were companies who were representing D2L. Class Dojo, Instructure, Canvas, Instructure, which owns Canvas, which we utilize, McGraw-Hill, and many others, and they kind of came up with these like guiding principles for these education technology companies working within education, which I thought were kind of some really cool principles to keep in mind, moving forward. AI in education should address the needs of learners, A lot of it talking about transparency and really about what our role is in educating, our learners and our learners about AI and what is going on in that regard, and how do we talk to our students when we're using AI to inform our decisions about them? How are we transparent about that? So a lot of it dealing with kind of the ethics and transparency and educating others about AI. And I know I've danced around it a little bit, and we could have tied things a little bit more closely into AI and open access. So in my mind, what we've kind of been promised, from the get-go, or we've been, optimistically believing, is that AI really can help kind of level the playing field. It should help. It should give every teacher a teaching assistant and every student a tutor right alongside them. And universities have a role in that to really help make that a reality, to help guide that in happening. One of the things that did come up in my mind, though, is like a real applicable advancement that I've noticed over the last couple of years is the advancements that AI has helped to make, within closed captioning, specifically within accessibility. It used to take a lot of money and resources and manual person time to accurately close caption anything. And now we're getting much, much, much closer to where AI can get things very, very accurate. A human does still have to go in and proof it, but there's been some really nice advancements in closed captioning and accessibility. But talking about, is part of the university's role in creating public-facing resources as well. We educate our students, we educate our faculty, but is there a role to help educate the external world as well about AI? And another big shout out to Kira Heskey and team for sharing this resource. This is Wharton's Teaching with AI website, kind of a public-facing website that they've created, where they've shared some resources for teachers, and also at the very, very bottom, if you scroll down to that page, they have their AI policy as well for students, which is really kind of interesting to see in action. So I would be remiss, though, if I didn't go through, kind of at the end of putting this together and checking my work. So I asked ChatGPT, what are some of the positive impacts that AI can have on higher education regarding open access? And we hit a lot of them, kind of enhancing accessibility, more personalized learning. We're still getting there. I want to see more, advancements being made in that regard. Content recommendation. We were talking about resources earlier and research, data analytics. Yep, we're seeing lots of that. Content generation. We talked about that with curriculum development. Language translation, that was something that I hadn't thought about necessarily, but as a part of added accessibility. That's fantastic. Plagiarism detection, we talked about that a little bit. And the interesting part, the cost reduction is an interesting conversation as well, because the educational technology in general has become, I want to go back and cite some of my sources, but it's expensive. It's expensive. So, what can universities do essentially to help not brunt some of the costs, but really make some of these AI resources available to students and help share in some of those costs and making things more accessible. So that's really about all that I had.